to this episode of the Darts World Weekly podcast. My name is AJ Toft.
And my name is Harry Masterson.
And how are we doing this week?
Very good, AJ. Obviously, still grafting on as always, uni and the Darts World Weekly podcast as well. How have you been?
Yes, it's been a busy week on all shapes and sizes, work-wise and decorating-wise and the likes, but darts never stops. So with that, we go into the news. And let's start off with last week's Premier League. That was in Nottingham. And again, what a fantastic evening of darts it was.
I think the world champion is finally starting to have a say in where this Premier League is going to go at the end of the 16 weeks of league format. It was a controlled performance from him last week. Again, impressing on the doubles, the averages 103 and 106. He's really starting to show what he can do in this Premier League.
Yes, absolutely. Obviously there's been a bedding in period for Luke Humphries with his debut year, but he seems to now found his stride, and the form that he's been in for the latter part of 2023, he's now bringing into the Premier League. And as you say, some fantastic averages from Luke Humphries. And we did say 110s are going to be coming the norm, and Luke Littler against Michael van Gerwen, 114. I mean, Van Gerwen averaged 110 and lost 6-2. What is that about?
I genuinely didn't think that game between Rob Cross and Luke Humphries the week before was going to get topped, but that match last week between Van Gerwen and Littler was just ridiculous. 110 average from Van Gerwen, and he only won 2 legs. And everyone, I think, at the end was just wanting that double 12 to be hit from Luke Littler.
Absolutely.
And we're just waiting now, I think the 9-darter will come eventually. One of these players is going to do it. And we've come so close. Price missed the double 12 in Glasgow, and we've now seen Littler miss it again in Nottingham.
Yeah, and you can set the standard of all the players. I mean, no one below 95 again. It just goes to show how high quality this is.
And Peter Wright is finally off the mark in the Premier League. A first win for him last week. And yes. I think I saw something on Twitter saying that his first win in the Premier League last year was against Gerwyn Price, and he's followed in the same path this time around.
Yes, and what do you think of the 50 mil points that he was using?
It was an interesting choice from him, but obviously nothing surprised me with Peter Wright in terms of what he goes up on stage with in terms of darts. He changes them all the time, but I think we all know that he is a perfectionist. He wants to use what he feels is the most comfortable to him, and it seemed to work against Gerwyn Price.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get the theory. I mean, John Lowe touched on it when he won his world title in 1993. He was, obviously when darts was not in its infancy, but the early days of TV darts, a lot of them were just using 30 mil points. That was it. You roughed them up at the sides, and you made sure you had your ballpoint pen kind of ending so it could go over the wires without, bounce outs. But he went to America, and he noticed they were using longer points, and it's just having the barrel further away from the board for better grouping. And it works for Luke Littler. I mean, Luke Littler's points are like 42 mil. So you can see, this growing trend, and a lot of players are using these longer points. I myself used to use longer points, but I've gone back down to a 32 mil point. I just find it more comfortable. I mean, there's a comfort level, but then you can see why these players are using these long points nowadays.
Absolutely. And we touched on Luke Humphries at the start. We'll go back to him now. He's top of the league, back-to-back wins in the Premier League now, heading into Dublin this week. And when Van Gerwen won his 3 nights in a row, did you honestly expect after at the halfway stage him not even to be top of the table?
No, I mean it's a closely contested top 6, and then 7 and 8. It's there's a bit of a gap, let's just say. But Luke Littler's plodding on nicely with with multiple semi-finals, and you've got a toss-up now between Nathan Aspelund and Rob Cross, and then but Michael Smith's not out of it. As I said, there's only 7 points between the top six, and it just takes one person to have a flourish, a good 2-3 week period, and the table can change tape can completely change again.
I'm seeing so many similarities this year with Luke Littler's campaign in the Premier League. And I might have said this last week, but it's very similar to what Nathan Aspinall did last year. And I am, is that night win going to come very soon for him? Because he will always have it in the back of his mind that he needs to get that win under his belt, because it could get to that stage at the end of the year where he's on the same points as fourth, but night wins are starting to play the factor. It's like goal difference in football, winning a night in this Premier League. And as soon as he gets that first one under his belt, I feel like more are going to follow.
Yes, and the Premier League bandwagon turns to Dublin this week, which is always a hotbed, and always, you get great crowds and great reactions and a great atmosphere. But we will discuss that later, because now we've got to discuss the PDC Challenge Tour.
Absolutely, and it was 4 different winners, I want to say, over the 5 events. It was a double for Andy Bolton on the Sunday. Lee Cox won the final one, and the opening 2 events were won by Noah Lynn van Leuven and Rene Idams. I think everyone will remember Rene Idams from his campaign against his match with Van Gerwen at the World Championships a few years ago, and we all knew he had the talent then, and
exactly
it again.
Exactly, when people say, the Challenge Tour and the Challenge Tour and the Pro Tour, there's a big difference between the two, but there isn't really. If you look at the standards and you look at the stats, there's not much difference. And we don't want to be a stats orientated program podcast, but if you look at the finer details, sometimes you notice there's not much difference.
Not much at all. I think I saw Andy Bolton average 101 in one of the finals that he won over the weekend. So just show, and it's over, like, I think it's the 5 legs, all the matches in the Pro Tour as well.
Yes,
so it's
correct.
like a decent sort of amount of legs being played, and the average is sort of telling in terms of what they're doing. And do you know what? There isn't that much of a difference. And the prizes at the end of the Challenge Tour as well, like your places at the Ali Pali and spot on the Pro Tour for 2 years, it's always going to be a recipe for competitiveness within the Challenge Tour.
Yeah, and we've only gone 10 tournaments into this Challenge Tour series for this year, and the top 10, it's looking very competitive. There's not a lot of money between it, especially when you start looking at 3rd to 8th. That group there, there's a couple of quid in it either way. But, at the top at the moment, Danny Jensen, after his amazing start at the Challenge Tour season, and with them 2 wins from Andy Bolton, that's propelled him into 2nd place. And Noah Lynn van Leuven has gone into the top 10.
Exactly. Rene Idams isn't even in the top 10. He's one of the winners of the tournament. So it just shows that the competitive aspect is there. And John Henderson going strong again. He was very close last year on the Challenge Tour. He missed out just to Owen Bates in terms of the qualifying positions for the Worlds and the Pro Tour, but he's still fighting again this year. He's won the World Seniors earlier on at the Circus Tavern, and now he's hoping to take the confidence from winning that into the Challenge Tour.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of them. You can have peaks and troughs where it's like similar to the Premier League, where Michael van Gerwen's been running away with it for them 3 weeks with 3 wins, and it kind of looked like no one was going to get past him. And he's 2nd, and then you've got Luke Littler, who's not won an event yet, but because of his constant performances, he's in 3rd place, and it's still all to play for. And you can see with this, you've got players who are not making massive headways into the semi-finals or finals, but they're getting there in the top 16s, top 8s, and they're building up money slowly but surely.
It's just getting that early wins in terms of the events that are being played, and just a win will do your confidence the world of good, because every dart player will have in the back of his mind that if you do lose a match, it does play a factor, and the more you win, the more confident you are when you're on the hockey.
Winning becomes easy, allegedly. So that was the Challenge Tour, and we go now onto the Pro Tour. Again, busy few days of darts for everybody, but the Pro Tour, been another fantastic 2 days of darts, and people say a shock win for Raymond van Barneveld, but I'm not saying so. I think he's been steady Eddie all the way through and getting a couple of quarterfinals, but he seems a lot more relaxed, and his throw seems to be a lot, as good as it ever was, and getting the win.
I mean, he looked very relaxed in terms of when he defeated two former world champions in Michael Smith and Gary Anderson, and not even mention the fact that Michael Smith threw a 9-darter against him as well. So
yeah,
I think he was pushed all the way in event 5, but at the end of it all, he was the best player on the day, and I think he only dropped one leg in the final as well. So
yes, against Stephen Bunting.
Yeah, and like a top-notch performance all day from Barney. We all know how difficult these events can be. It's you start play early in the afternoon and you don't finish till like 6-7 o'clock. So it is a long, tiring day. But for the older lot as well, it can be more difficult.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think with I think with Barney, he's always been not his own worst enemy, but if he's not in the right headspace, it just seems to not go the way. But watching some of the games, and especially the final, he just looked composed. He just looked, and that, as I said, that throw is just, it's like caramel. It's one of the best throws in the business, and when it's on, it's on, and it takes a lot to beat someone in that kind of form when it's effortless, and he makes it look effortless. It's not like a Michael van Gerwen throw where there's a lot of effort put into that throw, but I think similar vein of Luke Humphreys, where his throw just looks effortless. So once one's in, they're all in. It's simple as that, and I think that was the case for Barney yesterday.
And I think with Barney as well, one thing that you do notice that he does not care who he plays. He knows what he can produce in a game, and he won't let anything around him phase him whatsoever. Like Luke Littler played one of the games of his life to get rid of Barney in the World Championships, and it was a top performance. But again, he started the year strongly, Barney, and he didn't win a Pro Tour last year, but 5 events in, and he's already off the mark in 2024.
Yeah, it's great to see. I always have a close eye on the players I was looking up to when I was a young player. So you had your Steve Beatons, your Barneys, your Richie Burnett's on the BDO side, and then you had your Taylors, your Chris Masons, and your Dennis Priestleys, on the PDC side. But for Barney to still be rocking and rolling after all these years, and I remember his match against John Lowe in '93 when he hit that 170 checkout, and to still be, getting the winner's purse all them years later, it shows his commitment to the game.
And moving on, we also saw Peter Wright again reach quarterfinals on the Pro Tour, and again he lost out to Gary Anderson. I think he must be sick of having to face Gary at every single Pro Tour, because that's always the player that ends up stopping him in relation to the runs that he has.
Yeah, and but Gary Anderson just seems to be on this crest of a wave at the moment where he can't do no wrong. And again, similar to Barnett, that once he's on song with his throw and everything's lined up, takes a lot to take him out. And it's really good to see, as he's previously documented, maybe he fallen out of love of the game, and there was calls of stepping back and stuff, but now he just seems to have this second wind, and it's great to see.
And moving on to Pro Tour event 6, and we thought, well, Dave Chisnell last year had a very strong year both on the Euro Tour and the Pro Tour. He did win numerous events, and he's now up and running for this year. He beats Dirk van Dijvenbode at 8-6 in the final, and I think the fact Luke Humphreys and Luke Littler both, I don't think, played these 2 events. I think they decided to have the week off in preparation for maybe the Premier League. I don't know. But
yeah, it's a bit of a journey from, a bit of a journey. I was going to get into a tongue twister then, but I'd stop myself. It's like Nottingham to Germany to Dublin. It's a tough slog for anybody, let alone playing at such a high level like these players are doing.
Absolutely. I think I think we all knew at the start of the year that some of the players were going to take rests every now and again because the schedule is hectic. They've all said it, and
yeah, and I think with this, it opens a door for Challenge Tour players. It gives them that bit of a taste of the Pro Tour, and what you tend to find is them ones that have a taste of the Pro Tour sooner or later get into the Pro Tour.
we saw Danny Hansen today. He played Damon Heta, and he's probably one of the examples of a Challenge Tour player, getting an opportunity on the Pro Tour. And I think he played Damon Heta, was 3-0 down, and then he decided to just go and win 6 legs on the spin and knock him out. And Damon Heta's already won he's already won a Pro Tour this year, so it's not like he had an easy game.
Yeah, and that just shows you the gap that's people perceive like the top of the Challenge Tour and the bottom of the Pro Tour. There is no gap. It's just a continuation, and any of these Challenge Tour players that do get the opportunity are grabbing it.
Exactly. I think when Scott Taylor won at the MODUS a few weeks ago, the numbers that he was producing, you look at them and think they belong on the Pro Tour.
Yeah, and he does. I mean, I've known Scott for a long time, and I've played against him numerous times, and he seems to be one of them players. As I said at Q School, he might have a couple of barren days, but then when it really matters and when it's seems to be clutch darts are needed, he can find them somehow, some way. He grits down and gets on with it, and he's in the MODUS this week, and as you said, the stats he can pull out are second to none. And speaking of the MODUS, let's talk about last week's MODUS Super Series.
Looking back at last week in the Super Series, and it was the first win for Bradley Roos. I think we all knew that his career was going to be bright when he won the Lakeside Boys World Championships. I want to say it was last year he won it, or it was 2022. It was 2022, yeah. I think he won it, and we all knew that he signed with Red Dragon last year as well. So that's just another step in the right direction for him. And now he'll be returning for the Champions Week later on this year.
Yeah, and you've got to say, over the course of the week, Group A was fantastic, and then Groups B and C, that's when the class just seemed to rise more. But obviously, with the inclusion of you've got players like Jeff Smith and David Cameron coming into the mix, and it just everything just went upwards, so to speak. And Jensen Walker, a player that I said watch out for in the UK Open, really turned out well this week at MODUS. Played some exceptional stuff. I mean, the amount of video clips that was on Twitter, or X as it's called now, from MODUS, with highlights, and it seemed to be his 3 dart checkouts, and he hit a lot of them.
And he obviously qualified for his first finals night. Was it his debut in the
yes.
Super Series this week?
Yeah.
So again, just shows that no nerves whatsoever. Playing on the telly consistently in the Group C round robin format, and he impressed very well in them two on both the Thursday and the Friday, and then Tom Push checkout in his opening match against Bruce in final Group 1. So again, no nerves in that. He did lose the game, but it was I'm sure he can take so much confidence from what he did in his 2 days and going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a credit to him and a credit to all the people that have worked long and hard with him. Target Elite have been with him for a few years now, and I've seen him in his local events around the Midlands, and he's ventured out a bit more, and he's a really, really, really bright young prospect that I'm a real fan of.
Going back on to what you said about Group A, and it was I think if you look at Bradley Roos in terms of what he had to deal with before finals night itself, that group was it was on a knife edge. It was many players still in with a shot of making the top spot, and it came down to him and John Michael, who used to play on the PDC Pro Tour, and eventually he did nick the top spot on legs difference. And did that set him up in terms of the finals night, in terms of, well, I've come through that, then surely this can give me the confidence to go all the way in finals night?
I think it's 6 and 1 and half a dozen of the other, because for that player who goes through Group A, they've got a couple of days rest, whereas the players that have coming in through Groups C and B and C, they've got the momentum in hand. So it's kind of it's one of the. I mean, it depends on that player. Do they prefer that rest, or do they want to just keep going, 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 going? For me, it's like a Scott Taylor perhaps might prefer coming in later because then he can just keep going. Whereas, dependent on results, if he gets through to if he goes for your group A, I think that rest just might be a bit of a hindrance to him. And again, it's like, having to restart. Sometimes it's easier to keep going.
And you
It's
mentioned Scott Taylor. I remember he had that Group A campaign with Tom Sykes at Champions Week recently, and he was very close in
yeah.
terms of winning the group. And he ended up finishing second, so he had to go and play Group B. But do you think if he had topped the group, do you think that maybe what happened at Champion in the finals night would have happened if he had topped the group?
It's difficult to say. I mean, it's one of the. Some are momentum players and some just can just play that one match at a time, kind of thing. For me, I've always thought I was a momentum play. If I can get going, then I can just keep going. Once I'm at a level, I can stay there. Like but I think with Scott, he's of the same ilk. Like so, he said to me, in the past when we've spoken at tournaments, he does prefer coming in later because he can just keep going.
And I think this week he might actually have the 2 days rest because he's looking very strong in terms of finishing top of the group. I think he's lost just one game so far, and with 1 day left to go, quite a mark. I think there's a few points now in it between him and second, so it's looking very likely that he will be the Group A winner. And
so with the last week's Group 1 winner, Bradley Rose, winning this week, you can say maybe the rest done him good. I mean, a fantastic semi-final against Andy Hamilton with a near 100 average and, big scores, checkouts steady enough, 44%, which is exactly what you want, over just over you want 1 in 3 essentially on the doubles, and as long as you hit one of them, it doesn't matter where it comes from. But the other semi-final between the former World Cup pairs champions Jeff Smith and David Cameron, I mean that was a whole other affair where Jeff Smith got to say the informed player from the previous 2 days, scintillating darts from Jeff, but just seemed to fall short, on finals night, and David Cameron just seemed to have picked his game up.
I saw loads of ton plus checkouts from David Cameron all through the week. He started in Group A and then he just continued to do it all through finals night and through the week. And I think with that semi-final in particular, it was two very experienced players. Like Jeff Smith's won on the PDC circuit before he won that North American Championships a couple of years ago in New York, and then you look at David Cameron, who was the World Senior Masters champion only a few years ago as well. So,
yeah, they're both wily veterans of the game, and you could tell, there was a lot of respect between the two, and they're good friends off the hockey as well. So, and you could tell that within the game, it was kind of they were complimenting each other, but at the same time, going, "Oh, we should miss," that's the games you want, especially when you're playing against friends. I've got a lot of friends on the circuit, and when you seem to play against them, you just seem to have that mutual respect, and you might give them a bit too much respect, but then I think after the third leg it's like, yeah, right, whatever, you're done with now, and a good final between the two as well. I mean, 50% on the checkouts for Bradley, again, exactly what you need in this kind of format, short formats, best of 7, and going into finals week.
Exactly. I think Bradley Roos had a really good semi-final with Andy Hamilton. Well, as you said, he averaged nearly 100. And when you look at that, you look at Andy Hamilton and think you've got to be on your game to be beating Andy, because he's been around the block for a good few years now. He's reached a World Championship final. He even looked I think he got through like the opening stage of Q School this year and then didn't play the final stage because he was at MODUS.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, he's been there, done that, got the T-shirt and washed the car with it as well. But, it's, again, a fantastic weekend, so far so good this week in terms of the modus as well. As you say, all the highlights you want as a darts fan, and, for the players, it's the perfect environment to build your game up ready for next year, wherever that may take you.
And it's all available to you if you want to go check out the MODUS Super Series. It's on YouTube and it's free to watch. So, and trust me, the quality is unbelievable. It's definitely worth your time watching.
So that was the week that was, and now we've got to look into the future because it is the Premier League Predictor League. And let's just touch briefly on last week with Harry getting the weekly winner correct with Luke Humphries, getting them 3 additional points. In the match between Peter Wright and Gerwyn Price, we went 50-50, but it was my 50 that was just slightly better, with Peter Wright beating Gerwyn Price 6-4, 6-5, 6 could have gone either way. And then we both got the Nathan Aspinall Rob Cross game.
We got that wrong.
Yes, we both got that wrong. So I gained 2 points on that, but then Harry gained that extra point with the weekly winner. So in terms of the overall points, there is now only 4 points difference, with Harry on 34 and myself on 38. So it's still all to play for. So week 8, the Premier League bandwagon rolls up into Dublin, that fair city, at the 3 Arena. And again, we've got 4 fantastic matches ahead. And going from top to bottom, Luke Humphries versus Peter Wright, Nathan Aspinall versus Rob Cross, MVG versus Gerwyn Price, and Luke Littler versus Michael Smith. So the first match, Luke Humphries versus Peter Wright. Harry, who have you got and why?
So it's top versus bottom in the in this one. I think this is like, I think there's 2 weeks in the Premier League where the fixtures are based on where you are in the table. And I think obviously first place 8th, second place 7th, etc. I'm going to go with Luke Humphries to win this opening game. I do think that he's going to continue this, what has been a phenomenal run in the Premier League these last couple of weeks in particular, and I expect him to continue this against Wright. Don't get me wrong, Wright looks really good again. He had a decent outing on the Pro Tour yesterday, I want to say, because he got to the quarters. And I'm going to go with Humphries, and I'm going to go with him to win 6-3.
Yeah, I mean, you can't look past Luke Humphries at the moment. I mean, we said this about Michael Van Gerwen. You know, you couldn't look past him. But then, you know, the last 3 weeks have not been too kind to him. But as you say, Luke Humphries' game at the moment he's on a crest of a wave. And you know, as we mentioned about Gary Anderson, you know, when that throw is on, it is definitely on. And you know, but with Peter getting that first win last week, you know, it's going to be interesting. It's you know, it's all or nothing at the moment for Peter Wright. He's got to just try and win as many as possible and try and just, you know, maybe upset the apple cart somewhat. But I think, you know, it's not going to be tonight, unfortunately. It's not going to be Thursday, unfortunately, for Peter. I think Luke's going to win, and I think he's going to win 6-5.
I do think Peter will have the momentum going into that, but I just can't look away from Humphries at the minute. He just looks $1 million at the minute.
Yeah. So second game of the quarters, you've got Nathan Aspinall versus Rob Cross this time. We both went with Rob Cross last week and just came unstuck at the end. But I just feel the way he's throwing at the moment, I think he's gonna get the win this week. I think, you know, it's just gonna swap wins over for me personally. And I think it's gonna be again hotly contested. I think it's gonna be 6-5 to Rob Cross.
Well, we called last week that it was going to be a last leg decider between the two, and it was literally all set for Rob Cross to do it. And he had the throw in the final leg, but you've got to give credit to Nathan Aspinall. He dug deep, as he always does in every match he plays, and he got the job done. And I'm going to go with him to win this week. I think he does this. He does this every now and again, where he just builds like these runs, like he'll reach the semis like consistent weeks, and. Yeah. I just see that I think he might do that again this week, and I'm going to go with him to win 6-4 against Rob Cross.
Interesting. So, game 3, got Gerwyn. It's Gerwyn Price versus Michael Van Gerwen. And I think this is going to be closer than what the league table would suggest. The form of MVG we're not saying it's not been great. I mean, he had a 100+ average last week, but no one could. I don't think anybody on their best day would have handled the way Luke Littler was throwing. But I think this is going to be quite a pivotal game for both of them, and I think I'm going to go with the somewhat upset. And I say that in quotation marks because there's no such thing as an upset with these plays involved. But I think Gerwin Price is going to beat Michael van Gerwen 6-5.
I could very much see this going all the way. I think they had a game last year where Price beat Van Gerwen 6-5 in Cardiff, and I think Van Gerwen averaged like 110, Price averaged 97 or something, and still got the job done. So it wouldn't surprise me if that happened again this year in Dublin. Sorry, but I think Van Gerwen, he's got back to winning ways on the Pro Tour the last couple of days. So I feel like this win in the Premier League is going to be due. He'll know that Luke Humphries is now top, and he'll be desperate to get back on the winning board in terms of clawing them points back. He is the defending champion after all. And I think Van Gerwen will win this, and I'm going to go with him to win 6-4.
Again, there's arguments for both, and you can see both happening, but we've got to put our hats down on something, and sometimes it's roulette and sometimes it's chase the ace, but we've got to try something. But moving on to the last game of the quarterfinals, you've got the rematch of the Warrington St Helens. It's very good on a rugby league pitch, but this is darts and it's completely different game. But Luke Littler versus Michael Smith, and again, I think for me, I keep putting my neck out, and I think it's just, as you say, could be one of the cases of the steady eddy of the Premier League keeps going with Luke Littler winning 6-4.
I think this has got last leg decider written all over it. These two are both high scorers. The pace will suit both of them as well. And I'm going to go with Luke Littler to win as well. I think he will nick the last leg decider. But trust me, I think Michael Smith, if it went the other way and Michael Smith won, it would not surprise me one bit, because he's coming into this on the back of it in a 9-darter on the Pro Tour. So it's not like he's not in any form himself.
Yeah, exactly. And that just moves us on to the weekly winner. And I mean,
let me guess, you're going to say Luke Littler.
You look at the draw and it, with the way that I've predicted the quarterfinals to go, potentially you could have a Luke in the final, and that'd be worth having a look at. Pardon the pun, but but yeah, the way the quarterfinals are set and the way that I think the semi-finals will go from them quarters, it's going to be a coin toss, and I can see it. Luke Humphries has got a fight. I can see a final berth for both of them, but I think it's just when they two play together, I don't know. I feel Luke Littler may have a slight edge for some reason on Luke Humphries. And I know that's wild to say, but you can just see the momentum that Luke Littler's building up. But when you talk momentum, you've got to talk Luke Humphries. And it's, it is a 50-50 for me, absolutely. But I'm just going to put that 51% on Luke Littler.
I'm going the other way. I'm going to go Humphries to make it a hat-trick in Dublin. Like I said to you earlier on, I can't look away from him at the minute. The scores he's producing is ridiculous. I do agree with both of these reaching the final, because they've had a whole week off in comparison to everyone else, and maybe that plays a factor. Maybe it doesn't. I've had previous weeks where I've said that the winner is going to be the one that's had the rest, and it's not happened. This is why you don't take what I say when it comes to where you put in your money. But I would honestly, I genuinely think, don't take our advice in terms of putting your money. Like, if you look at previous episodes, no. But I'm going to go with Humphries. I do think that he's now top of the league as well, so he'll have that on the back of his mind as well. And if he knows that it's his debut campaign as well, he's got the highest tournament average out of anyone so far, and I don't see the run stopping in Dublin.
No, every point is a valid point, and you can see why it could go one way or the other. And we've both put our collective coins on the table and see how it lies. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, it's going to be a fantastic evening of darts yet again.
Exactly, and the crowd are definitely going to be up for it. We all know how loud the Dublin crowd can be. I remember there was that thing where Sky were doing like the loud. They were looking at the decibels of the crowds and who was the loudest. And I swear Dublin was up there in
Yeah,
terms of the noise they can make.
yeah. I think was it Edinburgh for when John Henderson made his entrance as a challenger when he had that format. That was unbelievable. But you've got to look at Dublin as well for that. It was, it's a fantastic atmosphere, and they love their sports there.
They do, and it's a huge arena as well.
Yes, yeah, it's not like some of the areas where the Premier League has been in the past. It might be a small arena or a small room, but Dublin is definitely not that. It's it's the go-to place for all your live events, and this is going to be something else. Now we come to our newest feature, On the Road, and this is where we tell you all of the events that are happening this weekend and into the future. It's the first of the Welsh qualifiers for the Red Dragon Doubles Cup. That's at the Delph Bar in Wrexham. And again, entries via dartsatlas.com. We also have a new event happening, which is a series of events with a finals night. It's the tendringdartsmasters, and it's the Rabscott Trophy with 5 qualifying events. So on the 30th of March, you're at the United Services Club in Horwich. Then on the 20th of April, you've got the Thorpe Social Club. 2nd of June, you're at the Clacton Railway Club. And the 7th of July, you're at the Clacton Sports Bar. And then the last qualifying event is the 10th of August, and that's at the Brightlingsea Community Centre. Now, with the format, it's going to be the 5 winners of the events qualifying for the finals, and then there's a points table for the players that don't qualify, and it's the top 3 that go there. And then the finals going to be playing at the Prince's Theatre in Clacton Town Hall, and prize fund of £2,500. So if you're around that area and you're available them nights, this is definitely a ticket to get. And with this, they're doing a special promotion where you can get 5 qualifying events for the price of 4. So get your entries in early, and you book all 5, you're getting 1 free. It's a free stab at the pie, so to speak. But if you've got any events that you want us to promote on this On the Road section, then email us at editor@dartsworld.com or get in touch with us on social medias via Facebook or X/Twitter.
And obviously, anyone taking part in these competitions, very best of luck from both of us. We look at, there's also the vault competitions that are coming to a close at the end of next week. So, and that gets you an opportunity to play on the MODUS Super Series. So if you want to be entering into that as well, £6 entry to get into it. It's £15 overall for the whole year on Darts Atlas. So get your entries in.
Yes, and may the darts be with you, and may the 180s be with you always. But that brings us to game, shot, and match for this episode. I'm AJ Ermston-Toft.
And I'm Harry Masterson.
And we will see you in the next round.